Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with me. Thank you so much for making the time to join. I really hope to be sure that you walk away with a lot of value today. There's quite a bit to discuss. So I'm going to get straight into it. It's a business owner's guide. This is all about resetting, rebuilding, and reigniting your business in a crisis economy. The reason I've called it that is because I think what we're facing is one stage of many similar stages, perhaps worse, perhaps slightly softer, what lie ahead in the next 24 months. So let's get straight into it. I always start with this slide because we need to remind ourselves about an absolute fact. And there are two. The first was produced by Mike Tyson, where he said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it is so true. This man cruised all the way through to about 45, 46 wins, and none of them really went beyond 2, 3, 4 rounds. He was then waiting to have his big bout, a second bout with Evander Holyfield. Remember the chap whose ear he bit off? Well, Evander was waiting at home for the cartilage to regrow back so he could look good when getting punched by Mike Tyson again in the next bout. In the interim, they set up a fight with a chap called Buster Douglas, a little known fellow who had about 24 bouts. He'd won about 50, 60% of them, but really he was just a filler. And that's what a winner looks like. Because what happened is in the 8th round, one of the longest fights that Mike Tyson had endured, with a left hook, he knocked Buster Douglas to the ground. He fell on the floor, and then he got up. And in the 10th round, Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson, a no-name brand coming out of nowhere, very moderate track record in history, beat Mike Tyson. And why did he beat him? Because winners get up. We've all suffered an enormous shock. We've all been hit in the face very hard with the corona economy. Nobody saw it coming. What I'm sharing with you today is a strategy to not only get up, but to get stable, to reset yourself, rebuild your business, and then win within a period of around 3 to 6 months from now. So the starting point is always to get control of yourself. In that process, I revert back to this remarkable woman, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's an American psychologist, an American-Swiss psychologist. And in effect, she is the data science version of Mother Teresa. She committed her life to understanding grief and what people go through. As we go through this, I'm asking you to have a look at the poll that we've just launched as well. It gives me a really good understanding of how to pitch the content I'm sharing with you and to make sure that everybody is covered. I'm looking to understand the size of your business based in turnover bands, because different businesses in different turnover bands face different challenges, and complexity based in the number of people you employ. So please go ahead, complete the polls. They will be made available to everybody too. Back to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. What she went and did is she created something called the grief curve. She said that when something terrible happens, like the loss of a loved one, at first, when it's inevitable, you go through a period of denial, and denial can last some time. As it becomes evident that the loved one will be lost, you move down the curve through frustration, and that's expressed as anger or fear. Anger that this is happening, or fear of what is to come. When you lose the loved one, you then slump into depression, and that depression can last for some time. If you don't figure out how to get out of it, you can waste valuable years of your life, and in the instance of a business, you can lose your business. She then said, people begin to experiment, they start to try new things, they start to change the habits that they had formed when they had the presence of their loved one with them. And in that, they start to make a decision on a new way forward and eventually integrate it back into their lives and hopefully find meaning again. It might be dramatic to talk about this, but for most of us as business owners, we are absolutely fundamentally intricately tied and involved in our businesses. We mostly started with very little capital, if any support behind us at all. We have committed and sacrificed profoundly. And this corona economy, with the shutdown that we're experiencing, is threatening the mere existence of our business. And in that, it threatens our income and, importantly, our meaning too. So I do treat it as severely as one would treat the loss of a loved one. What's important to understand here are three things. In the first instance, where are you on this curve? Really dig down and understand where you might be. Because if you're in the depression stage, I'm going to give you a lot of techniques to move into experimentation, decision, and integration. The second thing to understand is look at your team in the same light. A lot of people in your team are going through the Kubler-Ross change curve, I can promise you. In fact, every person has been through it. Some will go through it in a far deeper manner than others. And a lot of it's going to be based on a couple of things: the personal psychology and the circumstances people face at home. For those who have got comfort of good home, heating, warmth, bandwidth, etc., and are able to communicate and reach out and trade, it's fundamentally and profoundly different to those who don't have those circumstances. The third thing to understand from this is every single customer and every single supplier is going through it too, not as a business, but as the individual with whom you engage as your supplier or as your customer. So develop a good understanding of this, see where you are, see where your team is, see where your clients and customers and suppliers are, and then finally recognize this. When you move from experimentation to decision to integration, it doesn't mean you stay there. We are going to have multiple smaller shocks for the next 24 months, and perhaps some bigger ones too, depending on the infection rates here. If you move up here successfully, try and prevent yourself falling back down. And again, we'll talk about how to avoid that. So I use truths to certainly stabilize myself and to peg myself into the present moment and to be sure that I am on 24/7 around this issue. Yeah, you don't want to be working and running at the helm for too long. You know, 94.6% of businesses started fail to sell globally. And a lot of the older folk that we work with right across the US, the UK, and South Africa are saying, wow, I really am looking for a path out. I've been at the helm for 30, 40 years. Maybe the time has come. But let's go back to truths. So the first truth, an absolute certainty that you can be sure of, is that you are born. The next is that you will die. The third is you cannot change another person. Or you might want to, and sure we all do. And you might try, and you might use bribery and fear and love and persuasion, but only a person can choose to change themselves. The next, we've always lived in a world of great uncertainty. I can promise you, with every previous pandemic, with every previous tech revolution, with every previous change in the mode of transport, literally for thousands of years, 6,000-7,000 years since we have more or less been organized in some form of community and civilization, people have always lived in great uncertainty. If you go back 6,000-7,000 years ago, imagine the uncertainty and anxiety that was created from a simple thunder flash coming out of the heavens. The next thing is that the is sacred. Carl Gustav Jung, probably one of the most prolific writers on psychology, turned around and argued and quoted that good psychology, in other words, a good way to look at the world and have the world look back at you, is to plant yourself firmly in it with 2 feet. What is, not what could have been, what should have been, what might have been, what I wanted, what I didn't want. What is. Reality in that sense has no attachment to expectation or desire or want from your side. The quicker you can ground truth yourself and say, okay, Corona is here. and it's here to stay. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my business? The better the place you will be. Allowing your mind to move into a place where you might wish for or blame simply disables you to act in the present moment. And when we talk about saving a business, that acting in the present moment is absolutely vital. The next thing is you only have 100% control over, and that is your attitude. And the reason it's so important, your attitude determines your behavior, it determines your habits. It determines, as a result, through behavior and habits, the outcome of the thing, whether it be a relationship, whether it be family, whether it be your business. Many of us have been merrily going around, well, not that merry in South Africa, given the last 10 years of regressive economy in Eskom, but we have been going along building our businesses with some degree of success and some with a great degree of success. We held a particular attitude towards how we would build businesses leading up to the Corona economy. The Corona economy is here. It's fundamental now because the is sacred, that you change your attitude around how you saw and understood your business into a new way of looking and understanding your business. Because the entire environment that we are going to be sailing our ships in is a wild, tempestuous sea. It's different to the one that yielded success leading up to the Corona economy. And as a result, a new attitude is required to have the same success in the after Corona economy. The last thing I want to share with you, which is a really good technique. It's a technique that I've learned through years in martial arts. When you get hit in the face, the first thing that happens is you take a very sharp, deep breath. You get a fright. It's called a shock. And you breathe like that. And as you breathe like that, you breathe into the top of your lungs, a short, sharp breath, and immediately it releases cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. What that does is it activates your reptilian brain, your amygdala, and you go into a place of fight, flight, or freeze. It's not useful in the instance of a business. It might be enormously useful if you're suddenly being chased by a wild buffalo or a lion that catches you off guard. But in the instance of a business, you need to think before you act. And the rate and the pace of thinking will be aided by you adopting a framework, which I'm going to share with you now. Before we do that, let's just take a view on the future. What does it look like? We have to take a view, because if we rely on the view of all the experts out there, within about 15 seconds, you won't have any view at all. All you'll be seeing is fog. It's really important that as a business owner who leads themselves and leads their business, you take a view, you adopt that view, and you work into that view. You might want to ground truth the view, perhaps every now and then, but only go to one or two sources. Prevent going to social media and prevent following too many so-called experts around what the future looks like. So I'm going to share my view, certainly the one that we have adopted. And what I'm going to share with you here is a view produced by a consulting company in the United States. This is the American expectation. And the reason I use it is because a tremendous amount of data is being used and involved in this process. Plus, more importantly, a lot of money was paid for these studies to be done. So good research has been conducted and it's been conducted globally. What they argued is that probably, so where are we now? We are March, April, more or less. They're moving into their summer season. We are moving into our winter season. We are going to feel the full force of Corona in the next 3 to 4 months. As they move into the summer season, they're expecting to get to a place only in June, July, where they're testing 1 million people a day. And as we know, testing is an important element of managing strategy around Corona. Thereafter, they're expecting the very first vaccinations to come out that are solid vaccinations only to be in October, November. And they would then be given in the United States to the most vulnerable people and healthcare frontline workers. They're then expecting the second wave coming through their winter, which would be our summer. Thereafter, around March, April, May, there will be potentially a broadly available positive vaccine, which then starts to remove the threat of corona. So we are looking over here to around May, June, July next year. That's what we have ahead of us. What we have decided as a country is to prioritize the well-being of citizens. Our health ministry has put down a very credible piece of thinking around how we would adopt a safe place for people to live and work in. It uses two elements premised on one thing. The thing that it's premised on is the availability of health services and access to healthcare. To the extent that we have capacity, they will eventually start opening the economy by removing the lockdown in very organized stages. If infection rates rise and increase, they will then draw back the opening of the economy and begin to close it again in very structured stages. We can see that working on the following basis. If your business is considered to have economic value for the country, if it's going through tremendous economic stress, and if the transmission risk in the business is low, you're likely to be part of the first of 4 waves in opening the economy. If, however, your economic value is high, but your transmission risk is very high, you won't be in that first wave. So I'm really sad and sorry to say this, but the reality is what it is. Restaurants have a lot of economic value in the sense that they are critical in job creation. The retail environment is the biggest employer in South Africa, so it has tremendous economic value, but the transmission risks in retail are very, very high. Retail will probably be one of the last areas to open, and against a completely new set of rules and conditions of trade. The moment infection rates start to rise above a certain level and pressures put on health capacity and availability, it would then pull back away from retail and move all the way through to probably professional services, which is in one of the first waves of economy opening. Why? There's good economic value there. It's important to juice up the economy and to connect people, which professional services classically do. And the transmission risk can be heavily managed through instances like this across screens. We're going to see tonight, when our president speaks, what that economic strategy looks like. And we'll also get a better understanding of where our businesses are within this risk matrix. But expect this: a closed economy, opening gradually, closing again, all premised and all based on the capacity of our healthcare resources. In this, you need to understand and prepare your business, because before you act, you have to have a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing. The first thing you want to do is understand your risk rating in the crisis. And I'd be interested, we're going to run a poll on this, I'd be interested to get a sense as to whether you consider yourself to be in a business that is highly at risk, or has a medium risk, or has a low risk, based on the frequent shutdowns we can expect, and based on the social distancing rules and regulations that will be implemented across the economy. We've got Corona high, Corona medium, Corona low. Figure out where you are in the process, because where you are in the process will determine how you're going to behave in order to save and reset your business, and thereafter rebuild it in order to reignite it. The next thing that you need to consider is what sort of resources do you have? And size really matters over here. If you're a business that has very, very thin margins, and as a result, you've landed up with very, very thin reserves, in other words, spare cash, capital that you've preserved in order to withstand an economic shock of this nature, you're going to behave very differently compared to if you have resources behind you. If you are a business that has highly skilled staff that you cannot afford to lose, compared to a business that might have staff that is more available, that there is less scarcity in the market around, it's going to impact and change the way that you adopt your strategy. So look at yourself within the ratings from a corona high, medium, low risk, and look at yourself within your resource base and the reserves you have available. The next thing you want to do is understand your asset stack. So an asset stack is not an onion, but I use an onion to explain it. An asset stack is really all the capital you have. And I'm not talking only financial capital. I'm talking social capital too. Do you have a particular talent? Have you been in a sector and an industry for some time, and through that, do you have reputation? Do you have relationships? Do you have a delivery track record? Do you have access to information? Do you have access to talent? Do you have access to plant and equipment or machinery? Do you have access to capital that you preserved and saved? Do you have access to good culture within your business? And the reason I put this down is I recently spoke to a business owner who, upon seeing in the retail industry, he has 68 stores, upon seeing that the corona economy would shut down retail, he immediately took a 100% pay cut in his business. His co-founder and wife took a 50% pay cut. Their son, who'd been in the business for around 11 years, agreed to a 50% pay cut. This is after they had never ever declared dividends for the last 22 years of trade. For the last 22 years, they've been reinvested every single cent back into the business. They then went and approached their leadership team, located in 4 different provinces. Within 3 minutes, the leadership team turned around and said to them, "We are volunteering to take a 30% pay cut for the next 6 months, but there's a condition." He said, "What is the condition?" The leadership team turned around and said, "We want to keep our retail staff because without them, we can't start up again. We have community and relationship with them. They are good performers, and without them, we will not get that start going again." That's part of an asset stack. If you've developed good culture in your organization, consider it to be an asset. The way you look at your business to understand your asset stack is the way you would look at an onion. The innermost core of an onion is where all the flavor lies. The outside core is some flavor, but it starts to burn. And the very, very outside is simply the skin, what you can literally put aside. It's not edible or useful. If you look at the inner layer of your business, you need to understand your business in terms of what's core and strategic. In other words, without the inner layer, I don't exist. Without the inner layer, there is no future, never mind anything else. And I'll give you a good example. Let's say you are a business analytics service and you work with companies to turn information into intelligence. If you think about what's core and strategic to your capability, it's your ability to take data, slice, dice, and make sense of it, and then your ability to present it to a client. So if that is your business, without the data analytics capability, without the design and presentation capability, you can't operate. So all the assets, from people to culture, to product, to technology, to plant, to equipment, to relationships, that you need in order to have as core and strategic data analytics and data presentation, that is the inner layer. That you hold onto and you guard it at any and every cost. In the next layer, we have what is non-core but strategic. So going back to that example, this could be the provision of computing equipment and making sure the computing equipment is working. It's strategic, I need it, because without it, my data analytics folk can't do what they need to do, and my designers can't translate that into useful intelligence for a client. But do I really need to know how to integrate all my software and optimize the performance of my machines? I do at the moment, but could I outsource that to a partner, a reliable partner, someone who has that as their core and strategic capability? The final layer, the outside layer, is really what is non-core and non-strategic. And that should be purely 100% outsourced. You should buy it really mostly on price. So for example, your provider of stationery, the provider of, quite honestly, the printers would be non-core, non-strategic. There are many, many players out there. There are many, many different printers. In 15 minutes, you can get a new printing provider. You can get stationery very easily. If you have all that capability internally, understand it's non-core and non-strategic. The reason it's so important to see your business like this is because if we acknowledge that the way we traversed these wild oceans successfully pre-corona will look very differently to the model and our approach, our habit and our behavior of what we need to build post-corona to become relevant in a new environment. It means that you're going to look at your inner layer, your next layer, your outermost layer, and that's where you will be doing changes, not only in your cost structure, but what you hold onto and what you let go of, and more importantly, how you get them all to integrate with each other. The next and last piece before we get into the strategy is you've got to digitize to engage. Honestly, I've been a bit horrified at how many people were caught with their pants down. As Corona came, a lot of people had not put in place the basics of being able to speak to customers, clients, suppliers, and even more so their staff. There are two user groups when you digitize the business. And we have an entire presentation on this, which is available in the resource pack that I'll share with you at the end of the webinar. The first is you need to consider digitization inside and then outside. Inside refers to all the communications within your own teams. It's from sales all the way through to operations. It has administration all the way through up to management and to leadership. You need to be able to contact each other and engage with each other. The outside, the most simple form of outside would be a website. The most simple form of outside would be LinkedIn, at least, or Facebook or Instagram. It might even be WhatsApp if it's a less formal relationship. But you need to be able to communicate with the outside. Most of you here already are. The mere fact that you're on the webinar says so. When you look at digitizing your business, you're going to approach it in 4 layers. I'm not going to dwell on this, but I'll run through them very briefly because I want to get into the Corona Reset, Rebuild, Reignite strategy. The first thing you need to have in place are your communications technologies. A website to communicate to the outside, screens to communicate to the outside. It might be a shopping basket or order placement system to communicate to the outside. It might well be any of these social media forms to communicate to the outside. Communications inside would surely mean something like Zoom meetings, Microsoft Teams, Knox is a recent one that I'm hearing of, Skype. It's going to be WhatsApp groups. It's going to be email. It might be ticketing systems, but you need to be able to communicate both internally and externally. And it's really critical that you use the appropriate technology for the appropriate form of communication. WhatsApp is far more social. Zoom sessions where you might be having town hall meetings, for example, with your teams, is going to be a layer above social. And then if you have ticketing systems, that becomes operational between members of your team internally. Once you've got that in place, you're going to look for collaboration softwares to digitize your business. So for example, when you're sailing in a storm, would it be fair to say that you need good data in order to see what the storm ahead looks like from weather systems and the like? In the same way, when you're sailing in a storm as a business owner, you need to be able to translate your numbers into intelligence. And part of the reason is this: the storm is uncertain. It's going to create confusion and chaos. You're going to have more failures as you right your ship before you have successes. Those failures will impact you, and those failures will make you emotional. In the instance where you're emotional, you start to fall back down the Kubler-Ross curve. Data helps you get into the present moment, see things for what they are, and gives you some form of truth rather than impulse or instinct when you're feeling emotional in your business. If you had software that you ran your books on, Xero or Sage or QuickBooks, and your accountant had access to it online, and you had integrated it into your bank, you would be able to see at any point in time, literally in the minute, whether your cash flow is in good standing or not good standing. That's what collaboration software does. Coordination software are ticketing systems, for example. It's where you get the ability of the front end of the business, the market-facing part of the business, to work with the delivery end of the business. So sales and marketing teams working with operational and administrative teams. If these folk here who are responsible for fulfilling your promises can see what's coming down the pipe, they can make adjustments to their operational processes and constrain and contain costs accordingly, aligned with what they're expecting to be delivered. And then finally, we've got competition. I would urge you, if you're interested in understanding this in more detail, to have a look at the digitization webinar. So let's set strategy. In the moment, you have to move. You're going to be holding on to everything, and you're going to have to be working as a team. I'm going to set 3 strategies right now in lockdown and for future lockdowns, the period after lockdown, which would be 3 to 6 months, depending on what risk rating your business has, and then the period after that 3 to 6 months. In the first case, during lockdown, it's red. It is all about save your business and reset it at the same time. The single most important thing you need to do is preserve your capital. Get money in and stop money going out. See money in a crisis as a form of shock absorber. You were traveling along, you hit a pothole, the car lurched into the pothole, and the extent to which it has got shock absorbers means that the entire chassis and engine block don't break. That's what money is in the instance of capital that I'm referring to. Go to your clients, collect what you can, sell ahead, and try and secure COD delivery for discounted pricing. You want to get money into the business. Go to your suppliers and hold back on your payments. All payments that don't kill your operations, hold back on them, and hold back in order to prepare to negotiate. You preserved your capital, you're holding back on costs. The next thing is you have to engage your team. I can promise you your team members are as apprehensive and nervous about their futures as you are about your business. To the extent that you can engage your team shows that you are thinking about the business, you are thinking to preserve it, implying that you're thinking to preserve their opportunity through preserving the business. The way you engage your team, we did an entire session on how to manage people and engage with people. In fact, there were 2 webinars, a part 1 and a part 2. And part 1 was all around, firstly, attaining empathy, and part 2 was all around strategy. But you need to engage your team. Then engage your suppliers and customers. With your suppliers, you're looking to find sources of capital. Pretty much the example I gave you earlier, that individual who took all the pay cuts and salary cuts, which his team then volunteered to do, went to his supplier. His supplier is a man that he's been working with out of China for the last 22 years. They negotiated the following deal. 30% of all outstanding monies would be paid to their supplier in China. The remaining 70% would be paid in 6 equal installments, 6 months after they had begun to trade as normal again. And in the meantime, the supplier agreed, based on their long relationship and good standing, to supply them with product the whole way through. When I say that your relationships and your culture are part of your asset stack, that is a classical example. You must exhaust all support. During the red phase, you must exhaust all support. I will talk to you about how you engage your team a little later in order to reset the business. Post-lockdown, it's amber. Over here, it's about surviving and rebuilding. A lot of the work that you would have done in the red phase would be to start crafting new ways of selling your services and products. Suffice it to say, the way that customers behaved before Corona and the way they will behave after Corona will be fundamentally different. So you're going to test new ways of engaging with customers and suppliers. A lot of that thinking would have been done in the red phase. And again, be patient. I will give you the technique for that now. You're going to start digitizing and enabling social distancing strategies. They're going to be promulgated as part of the Disaster Management Act. So in effect, it's going to be law. The quicker you can move into digitizing most of your activities, what it simply means is that the quicker you will reach your market above and before your competitors. And more importantly, when the open economy starts to be closed again based on infection rates and health provision, you will have some sort of activity going because you have the digitized capabilities. You're going to invest and drive post-lockdown in prospecting and efficiencies. Your sales and marketing teams, based on new propositions, in other words, new ways of how you sell your services and how you sell your products, are going to be looking for new clients. You want to get them focused on establishing relationships with new clients. You need to think competitively here, because if your competitors have not done the same preparation that you're going to be doing, well, then you're going to be ahead. You might be ahead a few weeks, you might be ahead a couple of months. Capitalize on it, because we're going to have a lot of ground to make up for as a result of the shock in the economy itself. When it comes to operations, you will find better ways of doing things, I can assure you. And in doing so, a big focus over here around efficiency is getting better, simpler, faster at what you do, but also getting cheap at your ability to deliver. You want to then start translating all of that into building systems. And again, you must exhaust all the support that's out there. I put down the same site. It's called Funding the Lockdown. And it seems to be a fairly responsible site. It seems to have fairly up-to-date data. I think you're going to find probably it's one of the easiest places you can go to get a good sense of what's available and what's not. On that point, if you're going and you're relying on that, remember what we said, there is a sacred. If you do not meet criteria of aid that is available, if you can't get access to the help that's out there, because the providers of help, whether it be government or any other institution, have not created an easily accessible, workable way of engaging with you, don't fall into blame. Simply move on, because the only person who cares about you, I promise you, is you. In the new normal, it's green, accelerate and reignite. Over there, you've got to get back up onto the bridge of your ship. You've been in the engine room a lot. During the amber and red phase, you're leading from the front. Now you're going to be leading from behind. The reason you're leading from behind, from the front, is because it's absolutely crucial that when you face extreme risk to the business, or when the environment is very unstable, or when you have to make very quick decisions, you need to be at the front line with your team so that you can read the environment, they can read the environment, and collectively you can co-create a different way to do things. There is no time for you to sit back, consult one or two people, hopefully if you can, or to figure out a new way of doing things and then imposing it down the chain of command. You simply don't have the luxury of time to do that. And as small medium enterprises, it is our single biggest advantage. I would not like to be involved in an enormous corporate where all the decision making and view of the market has to be taken at a top tier level and then translated down to the bottom. Think about it from this point of view. Given the tough economy we've had, for the last 5 years, I have not come across a corporate entity that isn't restructuring at the beginning of each financial year again and again and again. There is no time for that luxury. You need to lead from the front in the red and amber phase. Once you back into green, 3 to 6 months after the economy is opened again, get back up onto the bridge. You're going to set targets around scaling the business. What that means to your operations team, you're going to be looking at targets around capacity and their ability to improve efficiency in the delivery of a service or product to a client or customer. In the sales and marketing team, you're going to be looking at sales targets, acquiring new clients and holding on to the clients that you have. Get access to funding. Please start to think about getting access to funding once you start settling in the green part of your economic strategy. And the reason for it is you'll be able to accelerate sales by getting into new markets that are being unserviced or poorly serviced by competitors who have not prepared to the same extent that you have. And at the same time, you're going to be looking for value. A lot of businesses are going to be harmed. A lot of businesses will be compromised, and a lot of businesses will close. It means access to plant and machinery at really good rates, at stock from competitors that you might be able to pick up for 30 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents in the rand. Talent from other competitors who couldn't hold on to their talent. Customers that aren't being serviced. The opportunities will be extensive. And you need to be on the bridge in order to identify which ones you're going to chase, secure, and own. So that gives you a sense of the three strategies. We've got the red, lockdown, which is save and reset. We've got the amber, which is start up again, but it's focused really on rebuilding your business through the propositions and the way you deliver them. And then we've got green, which is just go, go, go. It's about reignite. Across each of them, the red, amber, and green phase, there's 7 techniques you can use. And these will again change depending on your ability, your capability, your fervor to save your business, your opportunity mindset to get ahead and use this as possibly one of the biggest opportunities you as a business might face. You apply all 7 of these in each of the stages on a progressive basis. We start by saying, why are you doing what you're doing? Just because the sea is choppy, just because it's wild out there, it doesn't mean you should change the intention behind what you're doing. I've always believed, and from an auric point of view, we constantly promote that you should be doing one thing and one thing only, and that's building your business into an asset of value. It's a business with 3 features to it. The first thing is that it's a business that can appreciate in capital value. Think of it this way. You buy a share on the stock exchange for 50 Rand. You hold on to it for 5 years and you hope to sell it for 300 Rand. The difference between 350, 250 Rand is the capital appreciation that you have earned as a result of owning that asset. The same thing must be said for your business. The next thing you want that share to do is you want it to appreciate in growth, but also to generate income. So that share that you own on the stock exchange gives you a share of the dividends of that business. The dividends are the excess free cash produced by a well-performing business at the end of every financial year. That comes to you as a shareholder based on your percentage. In the same way in your business, you want income, and it comes to you in 2 forms. The first is in a salary, and the second will be hopefully with dividends once every 6 months or once every year. The third thing that defines an asset, it's tradable, it's sellable. If it's not an asset. So think of your business in this light. Are you doing what you need to do in order to grow the capital value of your business, as well as the income value, and then to make it tradable, meaning that the business can continue without you? Because if it can't, it cannot be sold. And if it cannot be sold, you can never get capital value for it. And so the story goes. Read up on the asset of value. There's a lot of content out there, and I'll be sharing a resource that goes into a lot of depth around it right at the end of this webinar. So if we are in agreement that we are chasing an asset of value, and that's what we want, and we recognize that the seas ahead of us are just simply very, very choppy, we're going to, as the storm approaches and hits us, apply a red strategy. As the storm starts to abate, a green strategy, and as we get into smoother seas again, we're going to go for a green strategy, which is accelerate and grow. In each of these, red, amber, and green, where do you start? One of the defining features of an asset of value, it's a business that has distinction It sets itself apart from its competitors, not by its product, not by its price, not by its service, but by saying we serve a very particular group of customers, and in doing so, we solve a problem that they experience, and we give them the right experience in how that problem gets solved. So if you think about it, no longer does the product really matter. Your level of service, every time I've asked someone what sets you apart, and people say to me, my service, I'm saying, yes, your service. Without you there, does the business still offer that same level of service? Remember tradability in the asset of value. You need to think about your business. How can it operate without you and maintain that level of service? What distinguishes the edge of competition is where people turn around and say, this product that I've got is a great product, but I know that tomorrow any one of my competitors can have it. And if not tomorrow, in 3 to 6 months, they can have it. What will set me apart is if I understand how this product, through what I do with it, solves a problem for a well-defined group of people. And if I look at that well-defined group of people and understand them deeply and understand how they want to be serviced, in other words, what experience they want in receiving information from me, engaging with me, and having their problem solved. If I become expert at that, then all my competitors won't be able to enter into that part of the market because they will be competing on price and product and service. I'm competing on a specialist knowledge of who I solve problems for and how. Key to an asset of value. So during lockdown, specifically, you're going to start with your customers and you're going to ask a couple of problems. Who are they? How many are there? What problems did they experience before the corona economy? And what is the likelihood of those problems changing after the corona economy? How did I serve them? What experience did I give them before the corona economy? And what experience should I give them after the corona economy? You're going to be asking them about the economics. Before the corona economy, what was your affordability like? What was your free cash flow like? What was your economics like? Post-corona economy, what do you expect it to be? How do you want us to engage with you post-corona? This is how we worked with you pre-corona. What do you envisage post-corona? How often should we be engaging with you? Would you be ordering more frequently, less frequently? Would you have a longer view on ordering services and products from us or a shorter view? You need to ask all these questions during that period. From an expertise, remember, we want to move beyond product and service here. If you think about it, there's nothing that you buy in order to not solve a problem for yourself. You're constantly looking for the easiest way to have your problem solved through the service or product that you buy. Experience matters. Let me give you 1 or 2 examples. So we work with a restaurant group. They've got about 11 restaurants and they do, I think it's more, sorry. They've got 20 restaurants and they do about 220 million Rand a year in revenues across all these restaurants. About 60% of this restaurant's population is older than 50 years of age. So they've got a menu that relates to people who are older than 50 years. People older than 50 years might, because it's casual eating, want a menu that's predictable, a menu that has got good value for money, and a menu that's efficient and easy to read. Whatever the circumstances are that attracted that age bracket. The atmosphere in the restaurant, the level of service, the layout, the design, everything accounts to creating the right experience for people 50 years and older. So 60% of their patrons fall into that age bracket. Can you see that how they served their clients, how they engaged their clients, how they laid out the restaurant, how they presented the food, how they took orders before Corona will have to change after Corona? Because after Corona, the segment of their clients, 60 years and older, who understand that they are vulnerable to the coronavirus if infected, their problem sets are going to be fundamentally different. They're going to look at the restaurant and they're going to be looking for very different things now. They're going to be looking for physical distancing between the tables. They're going to be very concerned about how a waitron touches the plate and hands the plate to them. They're going to be looking for overt demonstrations of hygiene, walking in and getting your hands cleaned, wiping down the table, the waiter before serving you, washing their hands again, right in front of you. All these demonstrations begin to add up and create the experience that says, this restaurant has understood my new problem set. They're responding through to my new problem set by creating the experience. I'm going to remain with them as a customer. We all have to understand our customers in terms of that. What were the problems before? What experiences did they want before that worked? And during the lockdown phase, get yourself and your team onto the phone. Start speaking to them, start engaging with them, and start learning about their changed realities. It's fundamental to the reset. Marketing and sales. The function of marketing in an asset of value is to generate leads. When you generate leads successfully and you convert them, it builds momentum into your business. It's driven by what we refer to as lead generation and conversion systems. In marketing, what will your new marketing messages have to be? How will those messages demonstrate that you've understood the change in environment? The campaigns that you're running, do you have different brand campaigns? What are your sales campaigns doing? During lockdown, your entire selling strategy must move away from transactional to relationship building. It's profoundly difficult and insensitive to be pushing products and services down a pipe when people are locked away from their businesses, locked up at home, facing all sorts of very challenging circumstances. Your sales team should be engaging with all your clients and perhaps future clients by offering empathy, understanding, engagement in order to build relationship. It's me asking you, hey, how are you doing? What are your circumstances like? Are you coping? Rather than, hey, how are you doing? You know, we've got a really great offer at the moment. You should take it up. There's a big difference in how that relationship gets established through that. You want to lock and load for 3 months at a time. As we emerge out of lockdown, those first 3 months where you think you've had all the engagements necessary with your suppliers and with your customers to understand how they want to have your products and services offered differently to them, will change again. Will change again. You're going to come out of lockdown and you're going to guide your sales and marketing team to build relationships, but also to start offering the new propositions that you developed during lockdown through the engagements you had with your customers and your suppliers. But their circumstances are going to change. It's going to be a very, very iterative and unstable and uncertain time. The first 3 months, if it does stabilize, means that you're moving into the green phase rather than remaining in amber. If in those 3 months, there's still a lot of flux and change around how customers want propositions to be offered and how they want to be communicated with, understand you're still in amber. You want to then digitize and analyze wherever possible. Your marketing campaigns, you need to measure them. You need to run them. You need to test them with your clients and customers. You need to, because it's the only way you will see what's working. If you collect stats as to the response you have to your campaigns, you then get a sense of which campaign is working better and why. For sales, in an asset of value, a lead conversion system is the selling function. Over here, you're going to change and train your sales teams on your new propositions that you're developing. You've got inbound versus outbound. The way that inbound works is customers call into you. The way that outbound works is that you go visit customers. In the physical distancing economy, what does it mean for your outbound team? How are you going to aid them to engage with your clients and customers? And what sort of technologies will you put in place to make it safe and responsive and reliable for them? Importantly, the answer to all of that lies with your customers. If during the red lockdown phase, Your sales team were engaging with your customers in order to understand how things are going to change for them. They themselves have the answers as to what you need to do to enable them to do their jobs. Example, if you've got reps driving around the country versus creating a digital showroom, could that be possible? Do you know the country rep? They drive, they visit remote towns, they visit outlying areas, they go and visit the stores, they take out a bag of samples, they show the samples, they take the orders from those customers, they email the orders back to you, and you supply them with your courier business. I wonder if you could do all of that digitally. The simple answer is yes, you can. It's something you need to start thinking about. It's one example of how you start to move from physical to digital. And again, let's understand why. The Corona economy is here for at least 18 to 24 months. During that period, we're going to have intermittent lockdowns. The last thing you can ill afford is to be stuck in a situation where you are locked down. And what's interesting about this, where you are located as a business will also determine whether you lock down or not. So you might have customers in, let's say, White River, in Mpumalanga. Because it's a safer area and not a hotspot, like the center of Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban are, if you're Cape Town, Durban, or Johannesburg based, you could be prevented from trading with them, yet if you have a digital interaction with them, you can continue to trade. Face-to-face meetings versus face-to-face screen meetings. A lot of us are already doing that, and a lot of us are wondering, why did we ever need offices? No doubt. The next thing you're going to be doing, both through the red, amber, and green phase, is looking at your operations. What we refer to in an asset of value is your fulfillment. It's through organized operational systems that are reliable and predictable so that you can put pressure on them. That's what scale is. You can increase your turnover without causing chaos in your operational delivery. How are you going to fulfill your customers' expectations? What do they want done differently? Do they want more frequent orders? Do they want the packaging of your products changed? Do they want the engagement with your installation teams done differently? All of those are operational issues. Installations with the plumber. Does the plumber arrive at the place of work where the job needs to be done in the way they did before the Corona economy, similar to the way they're going to do after the Corona economy? Surely you would have to change their uniforms. You would have to operationally create the experience for those customers that is profoundly different. So does it mean a new uniform? Does it mean a lot of PPE? Does it mean a new way of washing your hands with your own hand sanitizer as you step into that client's premises? Does it mean that you leave the bathroom where you fixed the leaking toilet or the leaking geyser in a different condition to the way you would have left it before? What does it mean? Does it mean you arrive in a broken up, busted up, rusted old bakkie, or do you arrive in a newly minted, well-branded vehicle? Because the experience begins from the instance of the phone call coming to you as a plumber saying, I need help. And it ends with the delivery of the service. Importantly, if you're serving in that space, a good experience gets me onto social media saying, I had the most remarkable experience with my plumber. Equally, a bad experience, one that made me feel unsafe, gets me onto social media stating the same thing. Product demonstrations, could they not occur on screens? We work with a fantastic business called Product One, and what they do is they're able to take a piece of machinery and create a completely three-dimensional virtual reality representation of that piece of machinery. Whereas before, I might have taken the machinery and gone and visited a number of clients. Now, before visiting clients and exposing myself and themselves to too many physical contacts, might I not translate that into a 3D or augmented reality screen experience, and only perhaps one visit of the 15 visits needed to sell this piece of plant and equipment might have to be physical. And there are many different other examples. When we then think about team, because an asset of value begins with a well-positioned business where you build momentum in sales and marketing, you can fulfill your promises through operations and administration, and all of that is fundamentally operated and coordinated and controlled by a good team, the right people with the right ability, doing the right thing at the right time. What are they currently doing? During lockdown, what are your team doing? Where are your team? Do you have contact with them? So as a business owner, are you sitting there feeling sorry for yourself that you're carrying the full load here, and your team, you're paying them, but what are they doing? To the extent that you have done the right things in red, the reset phase, I can promise you your team are more busy than they have ever been. From an auric perspective, our teams are working harder in the lockdown than they have ever worked during normal office working hours in a normal open economy. It's critical that as a business owner, you alone don't carry the load and the pressure behind this. In the reset phase, those conversations that your sales and marketing teams should be having with clients and customers, have you put a program in place for them to do so? Have you provided them with guiding and training on how to have a relationship conversation rather than a transaction conversation? Have you given them a framework on what you're looking them to ask customers and clients? Because remember, the outcome of that process should be you understanding how to reshape and reformat your marketing communications, the experience people want, and the new problem sets that you're going to be solving for them. All of that combined is called the value proposition you offer. In the red phase, your team should be doing that. In the amber phase, they should be selling that with a very keen ear and a very keen eye to see what's working and what's not working. The targets you set in the red phase are different to the targets you set in the amber phase, which are very different to the targets you set in the green phase. What are your team currently doing? Your ops and admin teams, are they engaging with each other firstly? Are they engaging with suppliers as well to understand how they can get better efficiency and better service, better deals? This shouldn't be left all up to you. You need to co-create during the red phase because A, it lifts the load from your shoulders. B, it gives your team purpose and meaning during a very, very anxiety-full period for them alone. And C, it means that when we go into amber and the economy begins to open, everybody is immediately on the same page. Are they equipped to work remotely? And this becomes a very interesting debate and discussion. A lot of people are saying, well, what does that mean? It means a couple of things. Firstly, have you enabled them with the right technology to communicate and integrate with each other? Did you create some WhatsApp groups? Did you create some Zoom meetings that everybody needs to attend? Did you organize your teams in such a way that team leaders have set communication protocols in place for their underlying team members? Have you got leadership team engagements going? It also means hardware. Whose responsibility should it be? In the services space, surely you're already providing your team with laptops and computers. Everybody has a phone. So what does it mean? Does it mean that you should be providing bandwidth? It's debatable. In a sense, people can't travel to work, saving on transport costs. You need help to keep this business afloat. Surely the quid pro quo is that people capacitate themselves sufficiently to work from home. What are their home environments like? Are they working from a 3-roomed home or a 30-roomed home? There's a big difference between the two. If they are working from a 3-roomed home, on top of family and everything, have you given them the right technologies to put virtual screens behind them so that if they are customer facing, they can have the right kind of conversation within the right stage and setting. Are they tasked to reshape and rebuild? It's so important that you co-create this business in the reset stage and the rebuild phase for the reasons I've mentioned. Don't leave it only on your own shoulders. Plus, there's a fourth benefit, besides the fact that it gives everybody purpose and meaning, besides the fact that they're carrying the load along with you in the risk in the business, besides the fact that they'll be able to hit the ground running. It's really important to get multiple perspectives on what you need to do differently post-corona. Ready them to hit the ground running. That is, you're doing all of this work in the red, you're repeating it in amber, and it changes very definitively in green. Unify them through vision and plan. It's so important that you keep your team on point around how you see the business and what you see for the future of the business. It's so important that you have social engagements along with strategic engagements. Once a week, connect up with everybody in the team. Call it a town hall meeting and have a look, see how everyone's doing to the extent that you can. Show empathy, show caring, show understanding, because everyone is worried about everyone else. A lot of people come to work, yes, of course, to earn money, but also to find some form of social engagement and meaning too. It's really important to maintain that in a lockdown environment and also in a physical distancing environment. You're going to, once you move into the green phase and you start to get a good sense that the work you've done in the red phase, the work you've done in the amber phase is working, as you start to really accelerate the growth of your business and put the foot down flat because you've done good work in the preceding 3 months or 6 months, you're going to start looking at a very different way of recruiting. A lot of it, if you've done this successfully, will be that people who you're recruiting would need to be very comfortable with technology. For those of your team members who are not comfortable with technology, I would urge you to urge them to become comfortable with technology. Go to the Khan Academy, go to Udemy, go to YouTube, go to many, many places where you can learn about different ways on working across screens. You can learn certain technologies. You can learn productivity technologies, collaboration technologies. People need to become comfortable with technology. For a team member to say to you, oh, you know, I'm not the tech type. Our teams need to earn their rights to work as we need to earn our rights to lead. The third last piece. So right, positioning is well done. We've built momentum. Operations is working. We've got a purposeful team driving all of that. You now emerging back up onto the bridge. And with that time that you're going to have, which will start appearing again as you recede from the battlefront back to the control room, how are you going to be spending that? In the early stages, red and amber, lead from the front. Your clients and customers need your decisiveness and decision. Your staff need your decisiveness and decision. Suppliers too. In many instances, the negotiations for suppliers, and we've done a lot of work and a lot of webinars on how to negotiate specifically with landlords and SARS. In many cases, in the red and amber phase, any fixed overhead supplier relationships you have, you must try and variabilize. Turn them into a percentage of revenue. I've been promoting very actively in the retail segment that you need to negotiate a rental freeze for 2 months with your landlord. For 6 months after the economy is opened, you migrate to a 6% of turnover. At the end of 6 months, you will have a good sense of what the business in the future looks like. Your landlords will have a good sense of what the business in the future looks like, and you can revert back to a normalized relationship and contract. People will always resist change, especially people who don't want to carry some of the pain alongside with you. It's your job to figure out how to persuade them or insist that they take on some of the pain that you're taking on simply to survive your business and through that, to provide them with ongoing revenue through the mere fact that you're alive, well, and trading. You must leverage your asset stack. Collaborate actively. Collaboration means this. Let's look at who serves the clients we serve by doing different things and not competing with us. Because if we can work with them to market to the same client base, if we can work with them to offer that client a double whammy experience where that partner offers what they offer, we offer what we offer, and it delivers more value to a client. How can we collaborate? Who can we collaborate with? Because we're going to be looking at how to accelerate the growth of our business. We need to reach more customers if we're well positioned to do so in a far quicker and far shorter period of time than we would normally doing it ourselves. Look to make acquisitions. You might well be in a position where your competitors are so mortally wounded that you can acquire everything that they might have. Absorb those businesses into yours if it brings on plant and equipment, if it brings on new access to customers, if it brings on talent and skill. There will be some really primed opportunities to ramp up growth once you're in the green phase. The next level, it's growth and value. That's what you're chasing. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that you've got funding available. The sixth feature of an asset of value, it's a business that funders really want to invest in because they can see who you serve, they can see you have the ability to generate sales and revenue from who you serve, they can see you have the ability to fulfill your promises in terms of who you serve, they can see you have a purposeful team behind you driving that business, releasing your time to focus on next level growth and value. Lock and load the funding. Prepare your plans. Preparing your plan begins from 4 weeks ago. If you think about it, funders themselves are unable to understand who is going to win and who is going to lose in this changed environment. So they're going to be looking primarily, as I do as a funder, at the nature, the character, the personality, and the behavioral traits of the person responsible for that business. If I can see that, snap, you responded to the lockdown. I can see you were smart around what you did during the lockdown. I can see that you tested your propositions in the amber phase. I can see that you have, through action, found out what works as opposed to what doesn't. And then I can see you did more of what works and less of what didn't. Trust me, you're a good investment, irrespective as to what happens to the economy for the 6 months ahead or year ahead that I might be funding you in. Lockdown success matters. You must be cognizant of regulations. Any funder won't want to go near a business that's in breach of regulations for obvious reasons. The agility and adaptability I spoke about, a funder is going to be looking to see what you've done over the last 6 months to identify whether you have those capabilities. And then you're going to be looking for 3 different sources of funding. Medium-term debt, where you might be acquiring plant and equipment at a discounted price from competitors in trouble. Long-term equity, that's where you might be making some acquisitions or profoundly ramping up your sales and marketing efforts. And then short-term opportunities, classically where you're acquiring some talent, where you might be acquiring stock for 50 cents in the dollar, or whatever the case might be. And then finally, keep the end in mind. I urge you not to panic in the stormy, choppy storm and seas that we find ourselves in. Remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. You departed from your harbor, you're going towards that destination. The destination doesn't change because the weather and the storm has changed. The path you will use to get to that destination will change. The end in mind, a business that of a day can be profitably sold. The Kabbalah, a mystical piece of ancient Jewish writing, argues that people draw their energy not from the past, they draw it from the future. And they use the example of a tree. The apex leaf, the leaf with the sharpest point, normally found in the exterior foliage of the tree. Those leaves pull the tree into the sunlight. They pull the tree into the empty open space. The energy comes from the open space and it comes from that sunlight. To the extent that you remain profoundly focused on why you're doing what you're doing, and all you're simply doing between now and a year and a half, 2 years from now, in a red, amber, green environment, is changing the way you're going to go about getting to where you intended to be in any event. It can be very, very powerful in terms of keeping a positive mindset and giving you the energy that most of us need at the moment to run a 14, 15-hour day. Build your team into that future. You cannot get there without them. Give them hope, give them aspiration, and give them a future too. Determine who would and who wouldn't buy you. You need to be constantly looking there because you have to build evidence towards that final exit. So 7 different techniques to be applied during the red phase, the amber phase, and the green phase. Those 7 techniques, those 7 frameworks actually need to be constantly in play, but with a different emphasis depending on whether you're in red, amber, or green. Get used to this, folks. You're going to iterate the whole time. Truth will only be found in action. What you think is going to work will only work once you know it works, and you will know it works only once you've applied it and you're getting a positive response from a supplier, a positive response from your team member, a positive response from your customer, most importantly. You need to move fast and in many small steps. There is no time to stand still, sit still, unless you have a lot of shock absorber between you and the fateful end of your business. I think that you need to be moving fast. The waters are changing, the wind is changing, the waves are changing. You can't simply set a course and say, that's what we're going to follow. You might have to get there in a zigzag as opposed to a straight line. Measure to gain clarity. Wherever possible, measure to gain clarity. Develop it as a discipline. Numbers give you rational thinking. Anecdote, social media. Someone saying yes, simply to get rid of you, gives you hope and prayer. It doesn't give you good strategy. Repeat this entire process to gain confidence. Trust me, we already all have it in us. With what we've had to put up with in the South African economy for the last 5 years especially, we have this resilience. We're used to iterating. We're used to building things and breaking them again to reshape and reformat them to work better. Take your team with you to gain traction. Again, people power your purpose. People power the purpose of a business. People power you. People power the positioning of a business. You have to earn your leadership rights. Exhaust all COVID support before you negotiate with landlords. When you negotiate with a landlord, they will want to know that you're not coming to them first and foremost, that you've exercised good faith in looking for everything that's available out there, and now you're coming to me because you are under tremendous amounts of pressure. Negotiate with banks before landlords, actually, perhaps both at the same time. Negotiate with SARS. If it means saving your business, if it means keeping your people on board, go negotiate deferred payments on PAYE and that for that matter. SARS want you to exist and to survive this, trust me, as do the banks and as do the landlords. Negotiate with your telco, negotiate with your customers. Get the money in hard and fast. Get it in with less profit, but get the money in. Then finally, negotiate with your people. You need to negotiate with your people last. The coronavirus, the red economy, the amber economy is not an opportunity for performance management. The Labor Relations Act abides and holds in this space and environment. I've been involved in 2 very big company turnarounds, businesses that are bought for $1 each, with an enormous amount of debt. I can tell you the success, thank heavens, in both those businesses came first from me engaging the team. They had the insight on what was wrong with marketing, what was wrong with sales, what was wrong with operations, what was wrong with finance, what was wrong with administration. In a time of crisis, if you engage your team appropriately and properly, a lot of the politics will fall away and people will get fundamentally practical on what can be done to preserve this business, the business that they earn their income from, and the business that gives them community and meaning. Be the best you can be in the moment. Remember, prepare first, then act. If you do so, and you've got a good sense of the 7 elements you're going to apply in the red period, the amber period, and the green period, you will be able to behave with confidence, clarity, and certainty. I'm not saying you will always be right, but you will have the confidence, certainty, and clarity. And it's a key element of good leadership. In you holding and demonstrating those traits, you build the confidence in your team too to do likewise. People power your business. You cannot sail in a choppy sea without them. I want to end off, and I've taken an hour and a bit of your time, but there's been a lot of content here. I said so in the beginning. A recording of this webinar and other webinars will all be made available on this site. We've created a resource page over there. That's you in the center. You are wearing PPE, as you can see, and you're well protected. If you're with Auric, you're especially well protected. We've created a whole lot of tools and capabilities that hopefully will give you some insight, will give you some perspective, will give you some inspiration, but most importantly, will give you some very, very practical things you can apply in your business in the next 15 minutes in order to get through the red period effectively, to reset, enter into the amber period, to rebuild in order to prepare for the green period where you're going to be reigniting. There's some books that you should read over there too. Specific questions you want answered, please let us know. The Corona economy is going to be around for a while, and I'm very happy to share the insights that we glean from both South Africa, the United States, and the UK in terms of how small, medium businesses, incidentally, that's a business doing up to about 300 million Rand a year, are performing in those environments. And any further topics you want covered, let us know. I would urge you to read this book. We released the book at the end of last year, and we have a Corona version available because it became available on Audible, funny enough, on the 1st of April. It's a story, no, it's 11 stories of 11 people just like you and me who started their businesses and built their businesses in profoundly difficult periods of their lives and the economy. It talks to those 7 elements, those 7 frameworks that get applied in the early stage of a business all the way through to create an asset of value. It talks about how businesses are bought and sold. It talks about how they're valued. It talks about how you can work with your team effectively. It talks about how you can bring technology into your business in a gradual, managed, organized way. And I hope that in reading it, it gives you more perspective and a lot more depth than I was able to deliver in the short time that we've spent together. Please send us your comments, send us your views. You're welcome to use the comment and chat line. I thank you again for giving up the time to be here. And I truly, truly hope 2 things. Number 1, that I've done my job and offered you good value. And that means an understanding of what you can do in your business to win in the red economy, to win in the amber economy, and to get to the other side of the green economy, where if you do so, you might have the biggest wealth creating opportunity you've ever faced in your business, given the circumstances of what you've traveled through and where we're going. With that, I thank you and I wish you the best of luck.